Hello everybody, welcome back to my video series on board games and board game mechanics. Now, a mechanic is basically an element within the board game that frames the gameplay of the game. And so I've been doing videos on the mechanisms of games, kind of picking certain ones, talking about them, explaining them, maybe showing off some games that exemplify what I'm talking about. So this video is going to do kind of the same thing. Today's video is Action Point Allowance System, or Action Point Allowance. And so the two things that I'm going to do in this video is, the first part is going to be just talking about Action Point Allowance, what is it, and then how it's kind of been predominantly used in the past 10 years or so. And then the second part, which will probably be the bulk of the video, is I brought some games out that use Action Point Allowance as the predominant mechanism. And I'll just kind of feature them, talk about them, promote them, say, hey, they're really great games, if you're interested in this type of gameplay. So we'll get into it. So I have an analogy that I like to use. The analogy kind of goes like this. We're going to go to a store, you and I. In this store, everything is $1. Costs $1 in this store. And I'm going to give you 5 $1 bills. You can go to this store and you can use your $1 bills to purchase items. Unfortunately, this store does not have 5 items, or else you would just get one of everything. You say, oh, I got everything the store offered. Unfortunately, it has hundreds of items, which means you're not ever really going to be able to get what the store offers, all that the store offers. But you have the autonomy to choose, I want to spend $1 on this, or maybe $2 on this, and $2 on this. Now, what if I reframed it and said, we're going to do this every single day. So tomorrow, come back, we're going to go to the same store, and you're going to get $5 new. Well, now you might spend it differently, because yesterday I spent it on this, and today I don't really need that. Today I need this, so I'll use my money this way. And then maybe tomorrow when we come, I'll get $5 more, and then I can use those to do that. And you can kind of pick and choose what they would say a la carte of what you want with your $5, because you get to come back every day with brand new set of 5 $1 bills. So that's the analogy of Action Point Allowance, or Action Point Allowance System. So what it means is, instead of dollars, on your turn, the game is basically set up like this. On your turn, you're given a certain amount of action points that you can spend to do things, to do actions within the game. Now, I'm just using a baseline of 5, just for clarity in this video. However, a lot of the games that I'm showing off, and a lot of the games that use Action Point Allowance Systems, they change from 3 to 4 to 5 to 6. I'm not going to get, just for clarification purposes in this video, I'm just going to be using 5. So you get 5 action points to spend on your turn. So once your turn, I want to move my guy from this castle to this castle. Okay, movement, that costs you an action. So you spend an action. But I also have this card here. This card I'd like to play because it lets me double my money. Okay, playing a card, that costs an action. Maybe my person has a special ability. I'd like to activate that. Okay, that costs an action. And so you're doing all these things. You're pulling from a giant menu of things that you can do. Hundreds of things that you can do. But you only have so much. But just like going to the store every day, as it goes around the table, it comes back to you, and guess what? You get 5 more actions. Well, last time, I don't really feel like moving from the castle, so I'm not going to move. So I'm going to use that action to do something else. Maybe I want to play 2 cards. I got 2 cards in my hand that I really would like to play. And so it allows the autonomy to basically pick from a menu. However, your dollars are limited. You have only a set amount of actions. So that's basically the crux of Action Point Allowance System and how it works. You basically are just a la carting from a menu of what you'd like to do on your turn. Do you want to move? Do you want to play a card? Do you want to activate an ability? Do you want to draw a resource? Do you want to spend a resource? Do you want to discard a card? I don't know. It depends on how the game works. But it's basically just a whole menu of stuff that you can do, but you're not going to be able to do everything on your turn. So you're going to have to do a little bit now, a little bit later, and decide what you need to do to best serve your turn when it is your turn, of what you really need to do to accomplish your objectives. So that's how the mechanic works. How it's been implemented the best in the past 10 years, in my opinion, is in cooperative games. There are a lot of cooperative games out there that use this a lot as its main function. Now, there is a game called Camel Up that has a very limited action point allowance system, because it's only one. You get $1, one action that you can spend. And when I teach the game, I always say I have good news and I have bad news. The good news is the game's not very complex, because on your turn you only do one thing. You just get to do one thing and then you're done. So don't worry about being confused about what you do on your turn. Unfortunately, the bad news is that one action that you can do, you can pick from 12 different things. And so that's where it's kind of like rough news. I'm not going to focus on that game. That is a competitive game. So again, I'm being kind of transparent. It is my opinion that Action Point Allowance Systems are best in cooperative games. But Camel Up's a great game as well. That's a competitive game. I'm not focusing on it because it's about betting on racing camels, and so it's more of a betting game, but it does have a very limited, you get your one action that you can spend. So that is an apt game to talk about, but I won't be talking about it. I'm going to pick, I've already picked all cooperative games, and I did that for a reason, because I think that this system is really implemented and used really well in cooperative games. So having said that, let's move on to the second portion, where I'm going to be pulling out some games, and these are all cooperative games, like I said, and they're games that I think are great for you to check out if you want. And I also kind of pick games with different varying weight to them as far as the complexity. And so I'm going to start off with a no-brainer, I think, for a lot of you watching my videos. That's pretty low on the complexity. It's a lot of fun. There's a bit of strategy, and it's easy to learn and easy to play. This is Pandemic. And so I have the Pandemic Legacy box, because I think Pandemic Legacy is the one and only and best way to play Pandemic. But if you want to just get the original, just base box, the non-legacy version, that works great. It's an action point allowance game. You get, I believe, 4 actions where you can move, you can play cards, you can cure diseases. The theme of the game is you are basically working together trying to stop a virus outbreak or viral outbreak that's taking over the world. And so you're working for the CDC, trying to stop the world from succumbing to a virus outbreak, a pandemic. And so this is a good one to get started. It's a family weight game. I believe it's also a good gateway game for new players. And again, I know I'm repeating myself, it's a cooperative game, so it's really good to get people around the table and all kind of learn together and spend their actions together from a menu. So Pandemic Legacy is one that I really recommend, and this is a pretty easy game to learn and play. So that's that one. The next game that I'm going to be talking about is very similar in the style and gameplay. Of course, it's an action point, which is why I'm showing it, but it's very different in theme. So it's a game that's very familiar to Pandemic, but very different in theme. And that is a game that I kind of enjoy quite a bit, and it's called Horrified. Now, in Horrified, it's set up very much the same as Pandemic. You're all working together as people of this town, trying to save the town from being overrun and villagers being terrorized and killed and eaten or whatever from all of the Universal Pictures monsters, such as like Dracula, Frankenstein's monster, or Frankenstein's bride. What else is on here? The Invisible Man, the Wolfman, the Creature from the Black Lagoon. You get to pick which kind of baddies you want to play with, and then you play and try to save the town. You try to win the game together, and it feels a lot like Pandemic. It does. It's just a different theme. It's got more of a horror theme, I guess. It's kind of pasted on, but it is fun because the different baddies, they all have different objectives as far as how to win against them or how to destroy them or defeat them. And so every iteration of the game is going to be different depending on which ones you can mix and match with. So you can play with Dracula one time, Frankenstein. The other time you can mix them together, the creature from the Black Lagoon and the Invisible Man are terrorizing this town. You know, you can up the complexity, or not the complexity, the difficulty to make it a harder game. You can do that with Pandemic as well. And so Horrified is one that I think is also really good. Family game, family weight, gateway game, feels very much like Pandemic. For those of you that already play Pandemic, I recommend Horrified. This is another one that would scratch that same Pandemic itch, but be a different theme, a different kind of a game. The one thing I want to note about this, I know this is a little off topic from Action Point, is this also has variable player powers. So you get to pick who you want to be in this game. Now you do get to do that in Pandemic as well, but it's not powers, it's just variable players. You get to pick who you want to be in Pandemic, but in Horrified, who you pick determines how many actions you will get. There are some people that have only 3 actions, but they have a really special ability that's like, wow, that's a really great ability. Yeah, but I only get 3 actions on my turn. Or there's one old lady in a wheelchair, I think, in this game, that has 5 actions she can do, but she has no special ability. So that's kind of fun too. So playing around with the combinations of monsters and then playing around with the different people that you can pick from. I want to play this guy this time. You played him last time. I'll play him this guy this time. And just seeing how all the different people play. So that's Horrified. This game is pretty easy to find. It's at like Target and stuff like that. So that's Horrified. The last one that I'm going to talk about is the one of my favorite games. I've done a video on it before talking all about it, so I'm not going to talk too much about the gameplay and things like that. This is probably the heaviest game out of this list of 3. Heavy meaning the complexity, the rules, and learning how to play it and getting into it and learning how things work. But I have to mention it because it's one of my favorite games. I know I've already done a video, but it is Arkham Horror, the card game. Now the board game version is a structured phase order game, which basically means like, okay, now everyone moves. Now everyone draws an encounter card. Now everyone does combat, if applicable. Now everyone gets to play a special card, if applicable. So like the phase of the turn is structured. It's always going to be the same every turn. But with the card game, and again, this is, tread lightly here, this is a great game, but it is hard to kind of get into and get the rules and the flow down. You got to play it a lot. But with Arkham Horror, the card game, the LCG, is you're given 3 actions on your turn. And again, it's the same thing. You're pulling from a menu. Do you want to move your person? Costs an action. Do you want to play a card? Costs an action. Well, once you play a card, you can tap or turn a card or exhaust a card to use it for free, so that doesn't cost an action. Or you can, create combos with cards. Very similar to Magic the Gathering. You can put together decks and customize decks for your person. But at the end of the day, with all the role-playing stuff and the deck customization stuff, it's still, the gameplay itself is Action Point Allowance. On your turn, you get 3 actions to do. What would you like to do? You're pulling from a menu. And so this one, again, is the probably most difficult to get into, but it is so fun, and it's probably the most thematic. Outside of Pandemic Legacy, regular Pandemic is not quite as thematic as this game, but this one is definitely good. So those are 3 examples of games for Action Point Allowance systems. If that's interesting to you, or if any of these games look interesting, then you'll kind of know how they work or how they're structured. I would say Horrified would be the easiest to learn. Pandemic Legacy would be the second as far as complexity. Plus, Pandemic Legacy is a legacy game, so there's some commitment there. And then the last would being Arkham Horror, the LCG, the card game. That's a game that's going to take some time and effort to like put your deck together, figure out how the rules work, how to best kind of min-max your player and your cards and stuff. It's really big fan of, it's people of Magic the Gathering, usually really big fan because of the card combination and stuff. And they're all not competitive, they're all cooperative, and I did that kind of on purpose. So I'm going to wrap up this video so it doesn't just kind of go on and on and on, but that's what this one is about. Action Point Allowance System, or what's more commonly called Action Point Allowance. Thank you for watching, thanks for being with me and sticking through the video, and I hope to see you all at the next video.